We're tonight on chapter 22, Daily Meditation. The text says, "One must be very worthy in order to be able to meditate for a given time each day and regret what he must. Not everyone can be worthy of doing this. These days passed and are gone. One finds that his life is over, and he never once had time to think about the meaning of his life. One must therefore make sure to set aside a specific time each day to review his life calmly. He should consider what he is doing and ponder whether it is something worthy of one's devotion." Daily meditation. One must be very worthy in order to be able to meditate for a given time each day and regret what he must. I love that. We don't normally think of regret as a spiritual practice. But if we go a little further, we begin to understand why he says this. Not everyone can be worthy of doing this. The days pass and are gone, and one finds that his life is over, and he never once had time to think about the meaning of his life, how well or ill spent it was, basically. One must therefore make sure to set aside a specific time each day to review his life calmly, to review it calmly. Now this is an interesting point. To review one's life calmly means to sit down in the middle of one's life and one's life condition, one's actual life. This is really the point of meditation, is to gather all of our energies from where they have become scattered out in the world, where they have been little bits of energy and concern and attention and belief have been scattered and siphoned off by various cultural interests. Like even when we watch a television commercial or listen to a commercial on the radio, and there's some part of our consciousness that is sucked into whatever vision of happiness or prosperity or beauty or being loved that it offers, we are losing our life condition. We are losing our life force. We are losing our place in life. So when we sit down to meditate, we're really sitting back down in our own lives and getting ourselves situated in our own lives and reviewing our lives. Now, we have been given so much moralistic religion in this culture that when we hear statements like this, we begin to hear a lot of oughts, like you ought to behave in a certain way, or you should do this, or you shouldn't do that. But that isn't really what the meditation practice that's being recommended here is about. What we are meant to do is to review our life from within our life and to see if a beautiful and coherent and compassionate picture emerges. One that is unified, one that is stabilized, one that radiates a certain kind of peace and joy so that that can be communicated outwards to other people in the world. Are we a source of peace in the world or a source of harm? Are we a source of tranquility and happiness, or do our actions and our very being serve to churn things up in the world and in other people? These are the kinds of questions we ask ourselves. And the final reference point is always our peace of mind. When we sit down and meditate, it's a little bit like when you try to relax your body fully. Like, for instance, having a session with Philippe, one of his sound sessions. How many of us can actually just completely relax and give ourselves over to the sound of those crystal bowls, or to meditation, or to prayer, or any other sort of spiritual activity or practice we might engage in? What we find is that there are pockets of tension in our body that remain, that we have to let go of, or we have to allow to relax within us. There are likewise moral pockets in our lives that are trouble spots or tense spots where we hold relationships that are impaired, resentments, grievances, disappointments, negative judgments on ourselves or other people. These are the troubled spots that create blind spots in our meditation and sore spots in our life. And so meditation is about actually taking a kind of a physical, moral, spiritual, and mental inventory. Find any place it hurts and look into it and lean into it and feel into it and figure out, why does it hurt? Why is this spot sore? And what can be done? Usually our meditation answers that question on its own, because by the time we find a sore spot, usually we've gone through some sort of a process of getting a little more open and honest with ourselves and the world, and usually we can begin to tell how to set things right. He should consider what he is doing and ponder whether it is something worthy of one's devotion. Ponder what he is doing and consider whether it is worthy of his devotion. Now, I think a lot of us don't think of ourselves as devoted people. I mean, maybe some of us do. Maybe we're devoted to a spouse, devoted to a career, devoted to a cause, devoted to our animals, devoted to our community. We may be devoted to many things. But I think nowadays there are a few people who would say outright about themselves, I am fully devoted to. We might say, well, I like to do this, or I believe in doing this, or I believe you should do this, or I try to do this, but I am fully devoted to, then fill in the blank. This is a quality of being that modern people don't necessarily find themselves having any real sustained experience of. And why? Why is that? Why don't we feel devoted? I think the answer is that we feel so scattered that the thought of feeling whole enough and healthy enough and unified enough to be able to devote fully, to offer fully to another person, another being, or a cause, gets away from us. It seems almost like an impossibility. Our schedules alone would almost seem to prohibit it. And so what Rebbe Nachman is saying really is that we want to become people who are capable of devotion and who are devoted to something worthy. Now, what might be a worthy thing to devote to? Sort of like the AA wisdom on this. Anything as long as it's not you. Sometimes people will come into, like, for instance, a 12-step program, and they will say, what's all this talk about higher power? What is that? Do I have to believe this or that? And people will say, no, it could be anything, as long as it isn't you. If it's you, it's not your higher power. It's just you. So it has to be something else. God means not you. So anything that isn't us is worthy of devotion. Anything that genuinely involves relationship, in other words, okay? Something outside of ourselves. If we think about like good and evil, I suppose we could say, oh, you can be very devoted to an evil cause, but isn't evil actually the blossom of the self? Does evil ever really occur in life when we really reach out to another? No. Evil occurs when we inflict our will or our agenda or our needs or our desires on another. There's rarely any real consciousness of the other. And so when we speak about our daily meditation and using our daily meditation to find something to be devoted to and to have something to devote, this is what we're talking about. And that's the reason why our daily meditation positions us in the world in a way to spread peace and to establish our own foundation for happiness.